This is ArcGIS Online, making a map with hosted data. Thank you guys for being here. And we'll go ahead and get started. So once again, for everybody who was here last week, I'm Deni. I will be teaching this workshop. My background is in forestry. I went to the University of Vermont to get my bachelor's of science in forestry, so that's how I learned GIS. GIS is used a lot in the natural resource world. So that's the angle that I come at it from. And I'm currently getting my geography MS here at UMass Amherst, but I have been using GIS since about 2017, and it has come a long way since then. So for today's agenda, we are going to cover some mapping tools. We will create a map. We will learn how to change the symbology, how to layer our data, and how to make visually appealing maps that everybody can see and understand very well, hopefully. So that's all the slideshow that I have prepared for today. We are going to just hop into the demo because that is the most exciting part. I know that's why everybody's here. So feel free to pop questions in the chat. Sorry, I'm opening up the chat right now. Feel free to pop questions in the chat as they come up, but we will leave some time for questions at the end of this as well. Awesome. So I highly encourage you guys to follow along. If you want to open up arcgis.com and try to do this with me, I will hopefully go slow enough for everybody to follow along. And if you are following along and something's not working, definitely check in and ask us. So we're starting at the home page. We are going to sign in, and this remembers my credentials. So it is signing me in directly, isn't it? It's thinking a little too hard. Oh gosh. It's thinking a little too hard. Okay, awesome. So I will be signing in through the UMass Amherst organization URL. Once again, if you are affiliated with UMass Amherst, this is how you will log in. So you will type in UMass-Amherst. I like it to remember my URL. And this is the part where it remembers my login and my password, so it signs me in. So from the home page, if you remember last time we covered this bar at the top that allows us to do all kinds of fun things. Today is actually when we're going to focus on the map tab. So we're solely going to be working in the map tab. Click on that and ArcGIS Online should create a brand new map for you. So today is going to be very menu heavy. The map function here has a lot of different menus where I think that like Esri just likes to hide things from us sometimes, but we will go over all of them. It's going to be very exciting, very fun stuff. So starting with this menu on the left, this dark menu, first you'll notice the add with the little plus sign here. This is where you will be able to add your data. And in the next workshop, Becky, if you could post a link to that in the chat, that would be dope. In the next workshop, we will teach you how to work with your own data. From today, we will just be using ArcGIS Online data, but this gives you a handful of options of how you can add your own data to your map. Your second menu item here is your layers tab. When you do have layers of data in here, they will appear here, and you can also add some through here as well. After that is our tables. As I mentioned last time, I think I mentioned this last time, sometimes you will have tables that are standalone and don't necessarily have direct geospatial correspondence to that, but they can still be a useful addition to data that you already have. So if you have any kind of CSV tables that go along with your data. This is where you will find those and where you can add them as well. After that is our base map. As you guys might remember last time, we covered a handful of these from the satellite imagery that just shows us satellite imagery to this is like Esri's version of Google Street View. Their default and what they always open up with is the topographic. I find this to be a little bit busy and they have a little too many symbols for me. So my two personal favorites are the light gray and the dark gray canvas. This is what they look like, especially because I tend to work with a lot of data and I like to make it colorful. So when you take out the rest of the busy noise, we're left with this, and that's my personal preference, but feel free to choose whatever speaks to your soul. They even have funky stuff like blueprint. So that's the base map. Through analysis, you can also create charts that represent different components of your data. And if you have those, they will be present here. After that is the legend. Right now, we don't have a legend because we don't have any data. But here is where you will see all of the different icons that represent different things, different attributes and different components of your data. Last is bookmarks, and I actually really love this feature. This is kind of like on Google Maps when you add in a bookmark and you can save that spatial extent later. Here's where you can save the spatial extent. So here, let me zoom in. And once again, if anybody forgot, to navigate throughout this map, you can just click and drag, and to zoom in and out, you can just use the scroll function on your mouse, or the zooming in part with your trackpad. So we're at the campus pond. Let's say that I want to add a bookmark at the pond. I will just call it campus pond. And that has added in a reference to the spatial extent of this particular location of my map and this zoom extent too. So if I, let's see, zoom out and drag myself far away, I can click on this and go right back to it. So that's a fun little feature. We're going to save the save and open for last. We have to actually create our map and then save it. But following that are the map properties. These I find to not be super relevant to everybody. So you can add in a background color. Let's say that you like the light gray canvas, but you really want it to be like pink underneath. You can add in like a shade of red, and then in the base map, you can click on here, which opens up your symbology for the base map. We'll cover all of these fun things later, but you can toggle the transparency and make kind of, it's a fun way to like modify your base map. And as you can see here, it tells you that it gives a little description about how the background color is rendered behind the base map. And for people that aren't super familiar with the terminology, the way that data is rendered is basically how it's drawn. And I have this fun little graphic that I like to reference. For all spatial data, all of the layers are kind of on top of each other. And that's how Esri draws them. And that's how geographic systems just in general draw your layers. So the order does matter, and the background is just your base color in the back. I don't find that to be relevant. The map view scale, if we turn that on, whenever we share our map with other people, if we have this turned on, it will preserve the same zoom extent essentially, which that may or may not be relevant to you depending on what you're doing. I personally feel like having this off is a little bit better, because if you do access this on a smaller device, you might be missing out on some of your data. And lastly, we have a time zone function. And in general, if you are lost and you forget what some of these menus are, and you see these little eyes, the icon, this is a feature that's super helpful in ArcGIS Pro. Always click on them, and Esri will give you the full description of what that feature represents. So with the time zone, we can edit the time zone if we're not working in the location that we're at, and we want to specify that. But all of that isn't super relevant for today, so we're going to disregard it. Lastly, here's the print option under more. I think for some people with bigger screens, this tends to be a little bit more expanded, and it's not like a whole extra menu. Oh, sorry, you guys, my computer is dying. Oh no. I may be having some technical difficulties here. Give me 1 second. Did we save it? Yes, we saved it. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, we will go over the printing and the saving at a later time. All right. The information is just the general Esri information tab, and then here you can also collapse this menu if you choose. Awesome. So before I cover the rest of these menus, let's add some data. So I'm going to click on the add button, and then I will click browse layers. As you remember, we covered all of the different content options in the last workshop. For today, you might notice that there's an additional, well, 2 additional options as opposed to the main content tab in ArcGIS Online, and that's subscription content, which I'm not entirely sure what kind of subscription you need for what to access that, but there's also ArcGIS Online, and that is the full scale of everybody that's published things to ArcGIS Online and has made them visible to the general public. So we're going to be searching things from there so that you guys can fully see how to find open source data. So if you are following along with me, we are going to add the following 3 layers here. The first will be USA structures, and that is a very large layer. It's from Esri, and it is also part of Living Atlas, if you remember that from last workshop. And that layer covers all of the buildings in the US. So I think they did a great job with this. I think it's a great example. So we'll be working with that. And on a more local scale, I would love to show you guys some trees because I am the tree person. So Becky helped me find this wonderful layer by the city of Cambridge. If you are searching for data through the ArcGIS Online portal, remember that there are credible sources on there and there are some not so credible sources on there. If it's just old Joe Schmo creating data for whatever project he's working on. But as I mentioned, the buildings data set is by Esri. This is by the city of Cambridge, so seems pretty trustworthy. Always check your sources. So you may have noticed as soon as I added that data, it zoomed me into the extent of Cambridge because that is the full extent of that data. The previous one zooms into Washington. I'm not sure why. So we have our trees, and then we will also be looking at the Cambridge tracts, and I am going to select the 2020 tracts layer. Okay, awesome. So as you can now see, there are tracts on top of our buildings and trees. So we should correct that. Let's go into our layers. And for now, honestly, we can just turn the tracts off. but I'm going to first drag and drop them so that they are below both the trees and the structures. In general, this is your drawing order, as you remember in that graphic. So this is how things will appear on top of each other. We won't be working with the tracked data quite yet, or the trees. So let's focus on just the structures, and you can toggle visibility on and off through here. One other thing before we cover the whole right menu and this whole list of new things that's now available to us, is if we go back to the legend. Oh gosh, sorry you guys, I have to have all the layers turned on for it to appear in the legend. If we go back to the legend, you can now see that we have all of our layers in there. You can see the order that they're in and the symbols and colors that represent each layer. So glad that's updated. Okay, so in the right-hand menu, you see all of these different options for things that we can edit. And I believe that the default is for the menu to be collapsed. It remembers all these settings the more you use ArcGIS, so it tends to keep it open for me. But feel free to open that back up so we can see all of the menu options. And you'll notice that right now it's showing me a lot of information for the 2020 tracks layer, and that's because that's the last one that I touched here. That's not the one we'll be working with. We'll be working with structures. So all I have to do is click on that and it will open this up. One thing I forgot to mention is, besides the visibility, that you can toggle visibility on and off, with the three little options menu here, you can also rename your layer. You can save it as something else, duplicate it, remove it. You can create groups of layers if you need that. You can zoom to them. So with the trees layer, if we zoom way out and away, and we right click on the, or left click, we click on the menu and we click zoom to, it'll bring us right back down to that tree menu, or that tree layer. Lastly, super important thing here is we do have our visual representation, but the rest of the data also matters. So if you click on the show table option, it brings up your attribute table, and this is where all of our data is actually stored. So you will see all of your attributes. This one has a lot, and this is essentially all of the data that's associated with each single building that's outlined in here. All right.
Deni, we have a question in the chat that I wonder if you could demo. It says USA structures is grayed out in the layers tab. Does that mean it's not fully loaded? And I wonder if that's a zoom issue. Like if you zoom in, does it gray out? Or if you zoom out, does it gray out maybe?
Yes. No, are you referring to this when I was in this view?
Yeah, so right there it's grayed out. That's what mine looks like. So if I zoom in at all. Oh, okay. I see.
Yes, I will tell you exactly why that happens in a little bit. Stay with me. Awesome. Okay, so we have selected our USA structures. If you just click on it, it opens up the right menu. Otherwise, we can also right click through here and click on show properties. And it opens up all of the menus expanded except the information menu, which I don't love. So I'm going to close all of them so that you can see what is covered just in the properties tab alone. So first thing in the properties tab is our information. So here we see our name. This is also where we can save the layer as something else just within our profile, because this is a public layer. So if we want to edit it, we can save it, we can duplicate it, we can manage the layer properties, all kinds of stuff. And that is the information menu. After that is the symbology. And this is basically what the legend also shows. You have an option to hide it from the legend. So if you turn this on, it will disappear from here. That's not super relevant for everything, but that is an option here. We'll go over this a little bit more later, but that's the quick and dirty symbology there. We can edit the appearance. This basically is just where you would edit your transparency. So if I want to make my layer a little bit more transparent, we can. The blending, there's this whole link here to the Esri tutorial. As you can see, it's coming up as a suggestion down there. Blending is one of those advanced things that we might not necessarily use because it is just a way to change the colors within this. And I have never found these options to be super relevant. I just tend to pick my own colors. And I'll show you more of the symbology later as well. So in the appearance, to me, this is the same thing as just transparency. Our next menu is the visibility. And so here's exactly what that question in the chat was about. So this goes over the visibility range. So right now we are here. If we zoom out, it kind of is just indicates how far zoomed in we are here. But because data sets like this are super large, this data set covers all of the United States, it would take a lot of processing power for this website to try to draw all of these tiny little buildings if we are zoomed out all the way, even just to Massachusetts, if you can imagine, that's a lot. So because that would slow down ArcGIS Online and it would just take us extra long to do everything pretty much, we get to set our visibility range. So this is kind of the default. I think Esri just automatically decides how big the data set, depending on how big the data set is, what the visibility range is, but you can also modify it. So let's say that you do want it to show for the greater Boston area and you're like, it's okay if it takes a little bit longer. I'm not even worried about that. You can just drag and drop the minimum and maximum bubbles here. That's what they represent. And if you want that, as you will notice, because we are zoomed out to this extent, it's taking a little bit to draw everything, and I'm already hearing my computer be a little bit louder. I actually don't know if that's relevant because this is ArcGIS Online, so I know that if I was on Pro, it would be angry at the fact that it's trying to draw all of this. But then on the flip side, we can also set a max visibility range. And I believe that's typically not, it's typically set to the full extent. But if for whatever reason we want to show data at a larger scale, but not at the smaller scale, we can kind of play with it and it'll give you a preview up here too of the extent. So if we zoom in now, past that, the layer turns off. But I will set it back to roughly where we had it before. So that's the visibility range. The refresh interval is how often the data refreshes. And this is if you are working with public open source data that gets updated frequently. In most cases, you won't be working with that. But I had one position where every single night in the middle of the night, this huge company-wide, organization-wide data set got updated. So in that case, you would have that turned on. After that is the feature display order. This is also one of those more advanced functions. It should be set to detail, or to default, but you can also edit how the features are displayed if you have, and then this is especially useful if you have overlapping features within a data set. And lastly, the custom parameters option. this is going to involve programming, and this is going to be a little bit beyond the scope of this class, but that is also there within the main properties tab. All right. I'm overwhelmed at just this first menu. I hope you guys aren't yet, because we still have symbology to cover. And that is also listed as styles in this second menu item here. So once again, I'm clicking on that. It defaults to representing the symbology for the USA structures because that is what I have clicked on. By default, this is the way that the layer was saved. It is saved as a unique symbology, and it tells you up here that it is classified or symbolized based off of the building occupancy classification. If we wanted to do that ourselves, we can definitely do that ourselves. We can exit out of that, and then it defaults to location, single symbol. That means that everything is classified the same, and in this case, it's this very interesting orange. But we want our buildings to get represented based off of type. So we will click the plus on the fields to add in a new query, is what it's called in the industry by the pros, which you guys will be after this workshop. So we will say, all right, add in a new query, a new style, and that will give you unique symbols for each building occupancy classification. So you're like, okay, AGOL, I hate these colors, and that's my first reaction. What are my other options? There have to be other options here. If you click on other options, the first menu is your color palette, which you can click on this pencil and you can edit a lot of different functions here. So the first one is the symbol, and that is going to be what it shows up in your legend as. So there's the basic shape, and that's just this little polygon. You can have like a hatch fill option, and that will hatch fill things. You can have a landscape. Let's say that we were representing water with this, right? Every building can be a different color water or a different color mangrove. And I'll let you play around with these on your own. For us, this will do. The basic polygon will do. But I hate the colors. So if I click on this, it will give me all kinds of different color ramps. Esri does have more than this as well, but these are the basics for AGOL, and I find that that's enough. So we're like, okay, this second one seems a little bit less abrasive to me. I will say, okay, thank you so much. That's the one I'm choosing. Here is where you can also edit your transparency, and that's not the transparency of the layer, but the transparency of the fill. So if you decide that you are symbolizing your data differently, where some things might be more transparent than others, you can mess around with the transparency through here as well. It chose black as my outline color, and I don't really know if I love that either. If I click on this, I can modify it to be anything else. It can be red if we choose. I can also click on this and say, no, thank you, I don't really need a color. But you know, now that I'm looking at this, maybe we will opt in for the black. And we will maybe just make it a little bit less wide. Oh, of course I have to type it in. So I think maybe 0.25 point looks the best. What do people think in the chat? You give me a little thumbs up if you think that this looks good. I'm over here just being creative, and I highly encourage you to do the same. Play around with that. And then the pattern is going to be your outline pattern. So let's say that we weren't making our different buildings different colors. We might want to symbolize them with a different pattern outline. But for now, this will do. All right. So that's that. Oh, sorry. In this next little menu within our symbology is this is showing us all of the unique symbols based off of the attribute that we chose. And that attribute is, oh my gosh, what did it call it? I had it selected earlier. Building occupancy classification. There we go. All right. So these are all of the unique values within the building occupancy classification feature. This is how it will be displayed in the legend as well. This is why this little pop-up comes up here. So you can see the symbology both on the map and in the legend. And let's say that I don't want unclassified to be my second most highlighted thing. I can drag and rearrange the order of these. So I think, residential, commercial, maybe industrial next. And you can make this to look however you want. We can also add in a title for all of these buildings. But we can play around more with the symbology later. Lastly, we can edit the transparency per attribute. And like I mentioned earlier, we can also have different values correlate to different transparency levels. I don't know if the menu wants to load for me today, though. I'll give up on that one. My internet connection isn't the best in my office. We'll blame UMass for that one. I'm joking. So that's our symbology for our layers. If I click done, it'll go back to this main menu. Awesome. We're not quite done yet, though. That's just the colors. We can also add filters, and I love that Esri provides a description here. The filters highlight features that matter. So let's say that I really want to highlight residential features. So I'm going to add in an expression where building occupancy classification is residential, and I can click save. And now, it took it a minute. Now it's going to highlight only the residential building occupancy classification values. Let's say that I want to highlight residential and industrial, right? I can have both of these, and if you notice, it grayed everything out. And this is a common mistake that I and a lot of people using this make is the and versus or dilemma. And that is obviously not one building can only have one classification. So we are going to change this to match at least one expression because there's no way for a building to be both residential and industrial in this data set. So if we click this, it will go to or, and it will filter all of the buildings that are either residential or industrial. All right, I'm gonna remove my filters and I'm noticing that for some reason, this is now kind of transparent, and I don't quite remember how that happened here. Becky, did you notice the moment that happened? Because I noticed it as soon as I turned a filter on, which seems like a little bit of a glitch to me.
What happened? I'm sorry, I was answering a question.
You're good. All of my buildings are very transparent.
Yeah, often. So when I change something in the styles menu, I like to make sure I hit done and then save. I'm not sure when the transparency got saved, but sometimes I'll accidentally exit out of that and all of my symbology work will be lost. So I don't know if it's related.
This is a really good way to do it again, although I'm noticing that it will happen even with the single symbol too. Is it within my, no, it's not within my layer. It's not here. You know, we might just have to pick a more vibrant option. Normally, this is the point, Becky's absolutely right. This is the point where we would save and refresh. But oh, is that it? No, that's my outline.
It looks like when you tried loading transparency based on attribute, it was successful. What happens if you scroll down there?
Thank you. That'll do it. That's the part where I forgot to uncheck it. Thank you so much. Okay, awesome. So we covered our filters. Effects are next. So you can also symbolize, you can add in effects to your symbology. So you can do it both for a whole layer and they can be feature specific. So if I want bloom to be on the whole layer, this is a very, very aggressive effect. Let me turn down the strength. It's a little too strong. Maybe turn down the radius too. And you can modify all of these settings to be fitting for whatever you're representing. So the defaults might not always be correct for your data, but so that's that effect. There are other fun things like brightness and contrast. This doesn't seem super great for this either. But yeah, there's all kinds of fun effects. And then we can also make them feature specific. So let's say that, and this is kind of another filter, they go hand in hand. So for residential building occupancy, we can do a gray drop shadow, and that will show us just these buildings with a gray drop shadow. So all kinds of things that you can do. Please play around with it on your own time. I had a lot of fun playing around with it, just prepping for this. So next is our pop-ups. So you notice that the pop-up came up. If we click on any one of our buildings here, you will notice the pop-up. The pop-up is just a quick and dirty summary of the attribute table for with all of the attributes for the specific building or specific object item that you clicked on. And we can configure that. So that is this menu. First things you can do, obviously exit out of the pop-up. You can also dock it or undock it. So right now it's automatically docked. If I undock it, it'll come up with like as like a chat bubble almost, or a chat box. Or we can dock it. We can get directions, and that's a whole map tool. Sorry, I definitely got a little ahead of myself with that. Oh my gosh. No.
You created a new root layer and so you're highlighting the root layer in your menu.
Thank you so much. That was totally a little panic mode there. So we're not going to click the get directions part because that is a root layer and that is again a whole different workshop. But we can also zoom to the specific building that we clicked on. So this one in the pop-up, it tells us that it's residential. It is, it gives us a little bit of information, the address, city, everything that is deemed important by the people that created this layer. But we can edit it here. So we can also disable it if we want to just not have pop-ups be a thing. We can make expressions, which is also a little bit too advanced. We can add in a title. So I can say building type, and then it'll pop up within the pop-up where the title spot is here. It also, if you notice, there's brackets here, these little curly brackets, and that will allow you to indicate to pull something from the attribute table. So if we click on them, we can add a field within our title. So here I want to express the building type, and the building type is located within the building occupancy classification. So if I click on that, it gives us the short name, and let me put a space in here too, and maybe that. And now we have our title, and within our pop-up, it'll say building type residential. You can also edit the text, but if we try to edit it, this is also one of those things that I think is a little bit more advanced, but keep taking more of these workshops, and pretty soon you will be able to code your own map and do everything like edit these. But as you can see with the curly brackets, the gist of it is the technical name within the attribute table corresponds to the attribute itself, the attribute quality itself within the pop-up. So that's how we edit those. All right. Next is the fields. And once again, you will notice the two names here that we can edit, especially building occupancy classification is a great one. This menu will let us modify the name for each field within the attribute table, and that'll correspond to the pop-up as well. So this one is the technical thing that it got saved under is OCC_CLS, and that doesn't tell us a lot of information. I'm sure that it's listed somewhere in the metadata, but it wouldn't really be meaningful if all of these attributes were listed as their default names. So that's why we can edit the display name through here. I like this, so I won't actually edit it. I'm going to keep it the way it is. But that is the thing that you can do with the fields. Next is our labels. If we enable and turn on our labels, we can add in labels for each of our items here. So the default here is image name, which that doesn't seem very meaningful. But if we want to label each building as its building occupancy classification, we can also do that. And once again, you will notice that the visibility range option is here too. So if I zoom out far enough, actually, this is a terrible default. Esri, come on. If I zoom out to here, I can't see them. And then if I zoom in, I will be able to see them and edit this as you see fit based on how crowded it looks to you. For me over here, this seems a little bit too crowded. So I'm like, all right, the labels can stay on the on the smaller scale of things. All right. I'll turn them off so that our map doesn't get too crowded. We can make charts with our data. I'm going to save this. I'm noticing that we are moving through time quite a little bit, and I have a few things to get that I still want to cover. So we can save this for a later workshop too. But this button here, analysis, is a super important in the menu. And that is where you will find all of your analytic tools if you want to conduct any kind of analysis on your data. So you can see your history, but you can also see, I don't have any history because it's a brand new map. But let's say that I want to summarize my buildings within my 2020 tracts. And then this is where this data set will come in for me. We can use this tool. And again, I'm just demoing this because I want to show you guys that you can do a lot with the software. There are a lot of tools you can modify and really work with your data through the AGOL platform. But please come to more workshops and learn about these tools on your own time, because I can't get through all of them in just the hour and a half, hour and 15. But let's say that I want to summarize maybe buildings within my tracts. So let's do that. It'll ask us for our input features first. So I'm inputting my USA structures, and that is the features to summarize. AGOL is pretty good about giving you rough instructions for how to do this. So I want to summarize these features within these areas. So it tells you that this it'll give me a count for those layers, sorry. And then your summary areas should be a polygon. And I'm going to choose my 2020 tracts for this. So this will calculate my statistics. It's asking for fields that I want to calculate. I think the default is, yeah, if none are specified, the output will only include the count of the features, and that's okay because I just want a count of the buildings. And square miles is okay for me. Output name, I will just put in buildings in Cambridge summary, and that is what it will get saved as under my UMass Amherst folder. So before we run anything, as you may remember, this software is not free. Through UMass, we each get, I believe it's 100,000 credits, right, Becky?
I think that's the number, yes?
I think that's the number. We're gonna go with that. Don't take that with a grain of salt, but I'm pretty sure that every single account comes with 100,000 credits. If you are doing this on your own, if you have a personal account, that has Esri has totally different options for that too. But before we run it, let's estimate how costly this will be. And as you can see, that is definitely over my budget. And I just want to demonstrate that it's going to cost us so much because our layers are so big. So the structures layer covers all of the United States. And so Esri is going to, or the software is going to have to take every single building and ask, does this fit within these tracts, yes or no? But if you take a smaller data set, like let's say our trees data set, which if you remember is just within the extent of Cambridge, and we re-estimate the credits, that brings us down to just under 32, because it's only working within this extent. So if you are wondering why something costs a lot, it's probably because your data is too big. So, Becky, I'm going to ask you to chime in. Do you think that we have time to run this, or would you recommend getting through the sketching and the saving and the rest of the workshop?
I would suggest running it, and then there's a really good question in the chat that you can talk about while it's running.
All right, fantastic. So somebody in the chat said, this is an amazingly powerful layer. Is there an especially good index of layers that we could look through to get a sense of what sorts of data sets are available? Becky, I think that's a better question for you. So to my knowledge, yeah, I'll let you cover that one.
Unfortunately, I think the answer is no. I've never seen a list of all the content in ArcGIS Online. It must numer in the multiple hundred thousands, if not millions at this point. And because it's such a volatile is a judgy word, but like it changes so much all the time.
Does anyone have like a my favorite layers playlist or something like that? I just like this layer is just so powerful. But if you didn't know to ask for US structures, you'd never know that literally every structure in the United States was available as a layer. So like it's amazing. I'm finding all sorts of census layers and county layers that I need but it would just be wonderful to sort of like know how to search for these things.
So I will tell you that when I was prepping for this workshop, the way that I found this is through Living Atlas. So because this is a Living Atlas layer, I have this open in this tab. I think probably I have a terrible habit of never closing my tabs. So through Living Atlas, we can filter by certain things. There we go. I'm on the browse setting. But you can filter by like structures in infrastructure, and then this is just the first layer, and it happened to be really good. But I think in terms of like favorites of really good layers, I would suggest the Living Atlas would be the closest thing you can get to that. But for example,
Awesome.
the
That's
Cambridge
great.
layers are not on there. So it is a little bit of a trial and error.
The other filters I like on that page, Deni, if you can pull that up one more time, there are two buttons you can toggle, Esri only content and authoritative only content. That'll cut down to 1,600 results. But those, you know, Esri, one of the value added parts of their services and the reason why they cost is because they do put a lot of staff time into developing these data sets. So I think the structures is an Esri data set. So this is a quick way to find other data sets they've made and curated that already have the fancy configured pop-ups and fancy color schemes and all of that.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that question. Oh, this disappeared. So on the bottom here, it told me that my my analysis finished running. And as you can see, it's now here. And it's both it's here and it's in my contents pane on my profile as well. So we can also change the symbology on how this is represented, but right off the bat, you can see that it's represented by these pink circles. And let's show the properties. It decided to default to a count of points with these pink circles representing more trees within each tract as bigger circles, and the lower amount of trees as smaller circles. So that's just a type of analysis, a type of tool that you can use to get meaningful results through your data. And if you want the full information of that, if we look at our attribute table, it will tell you for each tract somewhere in here, it should say count of points. And so that will be our count of trees from our analysis. Awesome. So after that, let me turn that off before it gets too confusing. And I really like our structures data set. So I'm going to turn that on and turn the rest off. After that is the edit tab. I will not go over this today. Please come to next week's session and we will go over how to create, edit, and modify our data. But I will show you how to sketch things. So a sketch is kind of your own temporary layer. As you can see, it lives up here. As soon as I clicked on it, it created a new layer. And this is where we can add in little like landmark indicators. We can add in lines. We can add in polygons, rectangles, circles, anything. So let's say that I really want to highlight the Joan Lorentz Park. I will put a little location item here. We can also edit the symbology here. The park can be a hedgehog. There's a lot of editable options within the sketch as well. But we will go over this more in depth in the next workshop as well. And then lastly, for our map tools, there is the direction option, which I will not accidentally click on that again and create a direction layer. But I will go over the measurement tool with you. So when you are working with a data set like this, let's say that you want to measure the distance between 2 points. And so we're going to start by clicking somewhere to place our first point. Let's say that I want to measure the distance of street here, Ellery Street. So I will start by clicking here, and it'll change as I move my mouse around. But to end the measurement, you just double click. And that tells me this is the measurement of that street. You can change from imperial to metric, feet, yards, miles, whatever you want to do. All right, so that is all for our right menu. I don't want to keep you guys too long, but I do want to show you how to save our map, because what is the point of doing all this work if you can't save our map? I'm going to clear that measurement. It's a little bit irrelevant. We'll keep the hedgehog. We'll keep the hedgehog. So if we go back over to this left menu, as I mentioned, we skipped the save and open menu from earlier. And our save as button is going to be at the top. So if we click that, this is where it prompts us for a title. And I will title it AGOL Workshop Map, the basics. Because that's what, well, the basics was the last workshop, but this is all AGOL basics. So that seems like a meaningful enough title to me. As you may remember from last time, there is also metadata that we can edit to make, just to keep adding in more information. We can add in any tags and a summary. And maybe for the summary, I will just put in created on the 28th, 2024 for AGOL workshop. Awesome. And I will click save. And within my content on my profile, I will refresh that. And you can see my web map right over here. And from here, within your profile, within the metadata menu, you can edit permissions, you can edit the image, all kinds of other things. But lastly, what if you're like, Deni, I want to share my map with somebody who doesn't have AGOL? What do I do? You can also create, share your map through this menu. Oh no. These are the share settings. Sorry, you guys. This is where you can click the print menu. The print option comes up, and it will allow you to create kind of like a quick and dirty layout. And if you're familiar with the word layout, that comes up a lot in ArcGIS Pro. Over there, it gives you a full suite of things. It's kind of like a mini Adobe in there, where you can fully edit your map. But for the AGOL version, you don't have to think about any of that. It will give you the legend and all of the other important map properties for you. So here, it will let me edit my title. Now that I've saved it, it'll populate that in there automatically. It gives me options for a page setup, and that's between portrait, landscape. I'm happy with the letter landscape that it chose. You can choose different formats. I think PDF is also great, but some people only accept JPEGs or whatever. And then there are some advanced options, like if you want to set the scale, author, copyright, anything else that you want to include in your layout. I personally think that it's really important to include a legend and a north arrow. So I'm going to check those within my advanced options. And then I will click export. And then I will click export. And oh, there it is. I missed it the first time.
Deni, well, for that to generate, what if I wanted to share the actual web map with somebody?
If you wanted to share the actual web map with somebody, you would click, oh gosh, that trips me up every single time.
I didn't mean for this to be a trick question. You would just share the URL.
You would just share the URL.
Yeah. You would need to go, as you were doing with share map, you'd need to change it so that other people can see it. So right now only you.
It's public. Yeah. Now everybody can see my map. And if you're curious about my specific map, I will drop that in the chat. Let me know if that works, if it updated my settings. But in the meantime, loaded, and I can click on it. And here is our beautiful, gorgeous map that came out at exactly the extent that I had it saved as. And it has our legend and our north arrow and our scale, all of the above. And once again, all of this is editable. I can change the text, change the colors, everything like that. But for the layout itself, Esri AGOL spits this out in a nice little format. And that is 10 minutes early, right on time, which is right on time for me. Are there any more questions? I have not been looking at the chat this whole time because it would have distracted me. But any remaining questions?
I just noticed in that PDF that you had pulled up, there was a description on the bottom right of maybe where the data was coming from, or what is that? Sorry if you don't know, I just was curious. It's like all the different organizations that are involved.
So I'm used to this. I usually ignore this part. Usually this part, I'm just like, get it off my map. Becky, do you know if the Harvard University City of Cambridge bit is just because I have it zoomed in to this extent, or is that Esri's normal credits now?
So yeah, that text is definitely credits. They're auto-generated. You'll see the same thing if you work in ArcGIS Pro and make a web map with any of these hosted layers. Esri does the hard work for us and puts the attribution and credits there. I don't know if Howard University and City of Cambridge is showing up because you have the trees layer. Like, I wonder if you remove the trees layer.
It might be because of my 2 Cambridge layers. That's what I'm thinking too. So let's remove these 2 layers. That is a very good question. I'm glad that you asked. And then the 2020 tracts. Let's remove the sketch layer too. Let's clean this up. We just have USA structures. We'll print our map again. We're going to keep everything the same. Export. Yeah, I've never paid attention to the credits before, but Esri does like to throw, oh, it will be the same. I'm noticing that it's down here. What if I go to Connecticut? Okay.
Yeah,
it does.
They provided the structure data. They helped with that.
That's what it is. That's definitely what it is. Yeah, so it would be the structure collaborator, and then the rest of this, Esri and everything after is all of Esri's basic credits because they contribute with all. That's really neat. You guys are teaching me something too. Awesome. Oh gosh, lastly, oh my gosh, Becky, I totally forgot this part. There are a lot of different guides and tutorials for how to choose the colors of your map. But one really important thing is, I know I have a friend who's colorblind, so I'm gonna drop this in the chat this time. Esri has this tutorial, or not tutorial, this guide basically for how to design maps for colorblind readability, and how to choose colors based off of different to kind of accommodate for different types of color blindness, and just in general, if you are making maps for a broader range than just within your organization, and you want to make it more accessible, this is a great guide to highlight to help you choose different colors. All right, thank you, Ethan. Awesome. Well, if there are no more questions, I might just let you guys run out a few minutes early. Thank you, everybody, for joining me here, and I hope to see you next week for our third and final workshop in this series for ArcGIS Online. Thank you.